My name is Peter Hoeyng, and I serve as chair. On behalf of all my colleagues that are present here, I welcome all of you, but especially our guest alumni, Amanda Moran and Mimi Hacking, and look very much forward to a wonderful conversation with you and what you can share based on your experiences with us in the past to our current students. And I welcome all our current students, even though, as I say, I can't see many of them, but that might change. Anyway, it is first my pleasure to introduce my colleague who will serve as moderator tonight, and that is Professor Hiram Maxim. And I'm not sure where on your screen you see him. He's just below me, so to speak. And Professor Maxim currently holds the 2019 Master Martin NEH Distinguished Teaching Professor of German Studies and Linguistics, meaning he's honored for his great capacity as a teacher and researcher in linguistics and German studies. And he helps other colleagues in how to improve or strengthen their teaching quality in that capacity. He has specialized in second language acquisition and how to structure or bring in that knowledge into the foreign language curriculum design. And quite frankly, without him, we would not have gained national distinction for our curriculum. And so we are very thankful for that. Most recently, however, as a linguist, he has moved into a new area. In addition to foreign language acquisition or second language acquisition, he has moved to linguistic landscapes and has just published the last month a new edited volume with a colleague, which is titled Language Teaching in the Linguistic Landscape, Mobilizing Pedagogy in Public Space. Some of that he started actually in Vienna when he was in 2018 the Fulbright Botstiber Visiting Professorship for the Austrian American Studies at the University of Vienna. And he did part of that there, of that new project on linguistic landscapes. And to round this up, even though I could go on with a longer list, but to round it up, in 2017, he also was a recipient of the Emory Williams Distinguished Teaching Award in our own college, and something very close to his heart, he was awarded for the Emory University Sustainability Innovator. So he's very much engaged in issues of sustainability, aside from his scholarly research in linguistics and German studies. And now, Max, you are next in row. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Peter. You went on far too long there. No, it's great to see everyone. There are many wonderful aspects of this profession, but I have to say one of my most favorite is reconnecting with the former students. So when that email comes out of the blue from a former student and they simply give an update of what they're doing or what they're thinking, where they are in the world, it's really always makes my day. So it's a real treat for me to see Amanda and Mimi here and to kind of go down memory lane a little bit with them, and also to for them to share their experiences with our current students. So, and is Susannah here yet? Yes. I see her down there. Okay, yeah, great. Okay, Susannah, I didn't get to meet you. I came too late, so I missed out on your contributions to Emory, but looking forward to get to know you more this evening. So the general plan for this evening was that I will moderate a Q&A with Amanda, Mimi, and Susannah for roughly 30-ish minutes, we're thinking, okay, give or take how things go. And then open up the floor for another 30-ish minutes for questions from our students, from colleagues, for our three guests tonight, okay? Yeah, so maybe we could start with general introductions, okay? Maybe not just a name, but also maybe a little bit about your kind of trajectory, maybe what got you to Emory or Oxford in this case. I don't want to make you homesick with my background here, and unfortunately I don't have an Oxford background, but I want to give you a little taste of what maybe it looks like at this very moment on the quad at Emory, okay, before spring has truly hit Atlanta. Yes, maybe a little bit about what got you to Emory or Oxford, your brief experiences at Emory in terms of your major and how German studies fit into that, and then where that took you and where you are now. Okay, so if we could maybe hear about that, and then we can move on to more specific questions, perhaps. I'm looking at my screen here. Amanda, you're the first one there. Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. My name is Amanda Moran. I graduated in 2009 from main campus Emory. I went to Oxford in 2005. I chose Oxford College because I really wanted a smaller school and not to get lost in the fray. And then felt that after 2 years, I'd be mature enough to handle a larger school, which seemed to work out. So I went from Oxford and into Emory. And once I got to main campus, I wanted to study economics. And also I actually had to fulfill a language requirement, which led me to the doorstep of Hiram Maxim's Intro to German class. And I will say that, and you'll hear in my career trajectory, the classes that I took in Emory's German department actually ended up being way more worthwhile than any other class I took in college, because my career path ultimately led me to Vienna to study international tax law, and I got there through the Vienna Studies program, which basically convinced me that I needed to live there and I needed to be a part of this country and this language and this philosophy. And then, after graduating, I did my LLM in Vienna and then went on to work in John Deere in Mannheim, Germany, where I continued to work in the tax group. And then Amazon hired me about 5 years ago to come to Seattle and work in their tax group here. So I've been in the States now for about 5 years, but I got to spend almost all of my 20s working and living in Europe. And that is 100% due to my experience in the German department, my basic knowledge of German, which grew into a more intermediate knowledge of German after living there. But also just the how the German studies group really presented studying abroad and learning of a different culture that really drew me to that path. So.
Great, thanks, Amanda. Yeah, we'll probably come back to hear more about Vienna too a little bit later. Okay, and of course that was a very memorable summer for a lot of us, right? 2009, right? That's something. Yeah. Okay. Great. Mimi, you're next on my screen. Want to go next?
Absolutely. My name is Mimi Hacking. I'm a 2011 graduate of Oxford and a 2013 graduate of Emory College. And what really drew me to both institutions was the strength of their academic programs in women's and gender and sexuality studies that I knew going into college would be one of my primary majors. And I studied German in high school, so I thought, I'll just carry it along. And then I kept going and I kept carrying it along. And then I thought, I have enough credits to study abroad. Maybe I'll do that and go to Berlin. And then it just turned into that wonderful passion in my life that no matter how hard I tried to ignore, I could not shake. So that led me into that realization that I wanted to be in higher ed for a really long time. I worked at a couple institutions in higher ed after graduating from college in an administrative position to kind of get my feel for working with students. And now I'm in my third year of a PhD program at the University of Pennsylvania in Germanic languages and literatures. So German has really gone from being the thing that I did every day because I just liked it into my life in a very wonderful, wonderful way. And a lot of that is thanks to Caroline Schaumann and Peter, who both taught me a lot about how to think about film and literature. So Emory just blew my mind out of the water, and German totally shifted the way my brain works. I love it so much.
Great, thanks so much. Susannah?
Sure, and my apologies for being a few minutes late. I have a 2-year-old who's having a tantrum, so you may hear her in the background if I'll try to mute in time. But I came to Emory with a plan of being pre-med, and I had studied German in high school, but wasn't really planning on making a major out of it. But I had wanted to kind of dabble in some courses and maybe do a minor. And then when I was a freshman, I had talked to other people about what it means to be pre-med, and everybody said, oh, you'll never have time to study abroad. And that was one thing that I was really interested in doing. And I said, well, this German studies program has this amazing sounding summer Vienna program. So I decided to do that, and I did that right after my freshman year. I was just too excited not to. And so I did that in the summer thinking, okay, now I've got that out of my system and I can go on with my pre-med studies. And when I got back from there, I was like, well, obviously I'm going to have to go again. And so I stayed with my pre-med major. I was a biology major, but I managed to, and the German studies department was extremely helpful in helping me get all of my courses in. And I managed to actually do a full semester abroad in Germany my junior year and still had my biology major. So I ended up with a double German and biology major, which have no overlap whatsoever. And it was totally doable. So whenever I'm talking with high school students or prospective students of any kind, I always throw that out there that, you know, if anybody says you don't have time to study abroad, don't listen. You can make it happen, and the faculty will want to help you with that. So I guess what brought me to Emory in the first place was largely the academic reputation, and just the campus was so beautiful, and the weather was so different from Central Ohio, which is where I was from. And when I stepped on campus for my campus visit, I just knew immediately. Everything about it was just, it felt like home, but like better than home. And then I ended up as a work study student. I worked in the German department for several years during my time there, which was a really wonderful experience. So that's about me.
Great, thanks, Susannah. And of course, if I may say, I believe your partner in crime in the German Studies Department was Therese. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, okay, we have to give Therese a quick nod there. And also, I forgot to neglect, after Mimi's introduction, that we have a little Emory UPenn mafia developing here. So our recent hire and dear colleague, Dita Muja, is a Penn PhD graduate. And so if you can see her, she's right below me on my screen. I'm not sure where we are. So it's great to have that Penn Emory connection as well. Yeah, so thanks so much for all three. And again, great to have you all here. Maybe if you could each talk a bit more about, as you may know, this whole alumni panel, this is happening across the college. This is an initiative that Peter Hoeyng is leading and directing to get humanities departments to connect with their alums and get their alums to connect with their students. And this is happening in the humanities. And so we're eager to hear from you all about how your humanities degree has played a role in your current career path. I think for Mimi, it's maybe a bit more obvious, but still, if you could talk about that, but also for Amanda and Susannah. And Susannah, if you could tell more a bit about your current position as well, and how you feel you're drawing on your humanities background and specifically German studies, and how there's been overlaps and maybe surprises of where you found yourself drawing on those experiences at Emory. Yeah, so maybe we'll stick with the same order if that's okay. Amanda, if you want to go ahead with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, there's kind of two tracks of mind when it comes to going to college. I feel like it's like, what skills do I need to acquire to get a job out of college, right? And then you have these humanities courses. And some people take the opinion that, you know, I just need to focus on getting a job out of college, and they ignore the humanities element. Others are really into the humanities and find a job naturally out of that. I think that as you all are studying humanities and studying German in particular, you'll be surprised at how fundamental these studies are in interweaving into your career. And I'll give you one example. I see Carolyn Schaumann's on. In my first job at John Deere in Mannheim, Germany, the first day, like the director said, okay, everyone, Amanda needs to get better at German, so you're only going to speak to her in German now. Okay, and this is my first job. And not only is it my first job, but my first job is now going to be in German. And Peter Hoeyng's laughing because he knows my German was not top notch when I studied at Emory. It was enough to get me by though. So, you know, through that, I was able to learn to speak German. But now I'm at a lunch table with my work colleagues. And what do I talk about with them? Well, because I took German film, I could talk about the Karl May Filme and the Heimatfilme. And you wouldn't believe how people just like were telling me about their kids and their lives through just that like fundamental like class that I took at Emory in German film, like the door that opened up and connected me now to my work colleagues. And that's just such a core example of how important these humanities classes are, because it makes you very well-rounded and it feeds into your work interactions. So like that's just one of many, but I think that the humanities are so important into how you're going to conduct yourselves as professionals, whether you're going to be an accountant or whether you're going to be a professor. You know, it's going to feed into your day-to-day. And German is, which I've come to see in my career path, like such a door opener. Like people have either taken German, they are interested in the language, they're interested in the culture, and it always like kind of gets your foot in the door into a discussion with someone that ultimately can end up being a great connection for you professionally. Like German's a really good one at that. So that's my spiel on how humanities are so important.
Great, thanks a lot, Amanda. Yeah, no, it's wonderful to hear that these specific features of a course you took come back to play a role down the line. It's always refreshing for us to hear too, of course. Yeah, Mimi, do you want to touch on that some?
I mean, the humanities are my life. It's what I do every day in teaching German classes and in, reading Kafka every day, which is what I'm writing my dissertation on at this point, is Kafka and ecology. And so everything that I learned at Emory feeds into this, right? In this interdisciplinary mix of weirdness. And that was one of the great parts about a lot of the courses that I took at the college. I'm thinking in particular with Pita, I took a course in which we read a series of different literature reviews of Heinrich von Kleist's Das Erdbeben in Chile. And that introduced me to Friedrich Kittler and to Germanistic in general. And with Carolina Schaumann, we watched all this film, and suddenly I was learning how to listen really, really hard. And I think that that's what happens a lot of time when you're working between languages, right? If you're in a German studies major, if you're in this room right now, you're in a multilingual environment. We're not talking about this in German, we're talking about it in English. We're all going through these modes of translation sometimes. And this is to say that while I was at Emory, one of the most important skills that I learned was how to listen very carefully to what people were saying, and listen very carefully to books, and listen very carefully to film, but listen really carefully to what my peers were saying. If you're working with another student and with a colleague who's talking to you in a language that is your target language, you have to think, and you have to do this level of interpretation and negotiation. And for me, after I graduated from Emory, I worked at Penn in their law school, and then I worked at Cornell in the College of Arts and Sciences, and I did career services work for 5 years. And I listened to students. I listened to their problems and their issues, and I helped them think about what they wanted to do with their lives and what made them feel motivated to keep going in school, and what made them feel motivated to find something that was interesting afterwards. And so there's this intense listening that is deployed when you're working in another language that is really necessary to just being around other humans. And that's one of the things that I'm really thankful for from my time there. And a weird thing that comes out of the humanities, this intense thinking, this intense looking, intense listening, the kind of quietude of attentiveness that makes your life so much richer in every way. That's what I would say.
Yeah, really, really nicely said. Thanks, Mimi. Yeah, Susannah?
The importance of the humanities, I think, has been really well covered. I have, I don't use the German language in my career, but I absolutely use the skills. Some of the, like the social awareness that you gain from, working for 4 years to try to understand another culture and another country's history and how that fits into the world. And then, of course, the study abroad aspect of it was huge for kind of shaping my worldview and just opening my eyes to, being in unfamiliar situations and how to interact with people who are different from me and have completely different backgrounds. And so I use that all the time. I mean, that's a skill that I think we all need no matter what our job is. That helps a lot in the collaboration aspect of having a job and just day-to-day life. My German background came into play unexpectedly when I started my children at daycare, because they were attending a little school that has a sister organization, a sister church in Germany. And so their whole model is they would bring students who were kind of taking a gap year before attending college, and they would come and teach the children, all the way from infants up to school age. And so that was their whole model. They would come and live here for a year. And so that's, what my kids were kind of immersed in. It wasn't a German language immersion or anything, but they were so surprised and delighted when I was able to speak with them a little bit in German. And they were like, no Americans speak German. That was the first they had ever encountered in, Columbus, Ohio, somebody who was like, oh, I do speak German. And so that was fun. And, sometimes I read my kids' books in German, but more than all of that, it is the basic ability to have an open mind, no matter what or who you're encountering. And the humanities definitely did that in a way that my very different biology major didn't quite cover all of those kinds of basic skills. And so a little bit more about what I do in my current role. So I made a couple of strange turns in my career. I have a degree in public health, and I worked in clinical trials for a while, and then I shifted that data analysis over to higher education. So I now kind of do program evaluation for a college here in Ohio. So lots of people skills, lots of data skills, but they all interact.
Great, thanks so much. I may have 2 more questions on my plate, and then maybe we can shift to an open discussion. This next one is a bit more kind of practically focused, and I think we have a few students in the room tonight that are approaching their senior year, maybe in their senior year. And I was wondering if you could talk a bit more concretely about as you saw the end of your Emory education approaching, thinking about where to go next. I mean, Amanda, you made the big leap to go overseas for graduate school, which is quite unusual even today. I think something we pushed and we encourage our undergrads to think about, to pursue graduate degrees overseas. But not many take that on. You did, so if you could maybe walk us through what your motivation was for that. Mimi, you too. We haven't had many, as much as we speaking of the faculty, pursued graduate degrees in German studies. We have very few students who've done that. You're one of the few, and so what kind of motivated those choices? And then Susannah, for you as well, as you're winding down your Emory career, what kind of walk us through your senior year and the next steps as you look beyond Emory.
All right, I could kick this off. So my senior year, I was in a very similar situation to you guys. The financial crisis had just hit. It was like a panic at graduation because there were no jobs. Jobs had effectively dried up. The internships were really hard to come by. And my my boyfriend at the time, who I met on the Vienna program, his father looked at me and said, you need to stand out and you need to have a resume that sets you apart. That's the name of the game for you. And to do that was to go abroad for my master's, get out of just trying to do the mainstream, process of getting an internship and then, maybe going back to school after that. Or he's like, you need to specialize and you need to stand out. And finding this specialty in international tax, and also getting a degree in Austria at the Wirtschaftsuniversität in Vienna made me stand out. There was, after I did that and had that degree, and which, by the way, was very inexpensive in comparison to US master's programs. I mean, it was a fraction. But, after I went there and did that, it was a year program and got my degree over there, that reaped benefits throughout when I was looking for jobs, because my resume would come up. That's why I think Amazon just grabbed me as soon as I put my resume out there, because they're like, what is this? Like, what did you do? How did you do this? They were interested. And it was also just the best conversation starter in an interview, because people see that and they're like, tell me, why did you go to Vienna? Why did you do your master's there? So setting yourself apart, and it doesn't necessarily mean to be going abroad to do your master's, but thinking about how to turn this German studies, whether it's going to be your full-time career or it's your passion, into setting yourself apart from everyone else that's going to be interviewing for a job. So that was my mindset, thanks to some good advice of figuring out how to specialize and set yourself apart. In a time where there's just going to be so many people looking for jobs and internships are going to be scarce. And then using your tools through German to, have doors open for you in certain ways. And you'd be surprised with the connections through your German department, the connections through the friends you make in the German studies department. They became my crew my senior year. All my friends were in the German studies group. So, we'd all watch German film together, and then they go off and do things, and you have that lifelong connection too. So that's my advice: set yourself apart, like stand out and specialize.
Great, thanks. And just to clarify, Amanda, your graduate program in Vienna was in English, right? Primarily or solely?
Yeah.
No, that's not a criticism. I just want to make sure. So students think that, I have to be fluent in German to study overseas. No, actually, a lot of these programs are in English. So yeah.
They are. A lot of them are. This one was an international program. I called it the Noah's Ark of tax people. They had like 2 Americans, 2 French, 2 German, 2 Swiss, 2 Chinese, and they were all boy, girl. It was very interesting. But it was all taught in English. And the fact that I spoke German and knew Vienna, I had a leg up. So I was able to show, okay, we're going to the Nationalmarkt for dinner tonight. This is where we're going to study. I knew the city, I could speak German, converse, felt comfortable living there after the Vienna Studies program. And I use my German every day in my day-to-day. So yeah, you don't have to find a program that is, taught in German. It'd be great if you did, but these universities in Europe offer a lot of English speaking classes because they want to attract Americans who will typically pay full price, and also, French or Chinese. So they have a lot of international programs that are taught in English.
Great, thanks. Okay, and your senior year, Mimi?
Yeah, my senior year was really strange. I went abroad for a semester in my junior year in the spring, and I came back and it kind of smacked me in the face how much I wanted to be back in Germany. I just, it became my whole spirit and passion was like, oh my gosh, what was that place? The trains are yellow. I just fell in love with Berlin in such a world-changing, crack into my bones kind of way. It changed my RNA, it went deep. And the thing that I really wish I had done during my senior year was to take that desire seriously and to take my passion and to take my talent seriously. I don't know if you folks realize it, but you are with a whole bunch of very, very, very intelligent, very well-connected people who are interested and invested in your success and in your future and your ability to apply what you're doing now to that time that's ahead of you. I didn't go to career services, and as a career services person, I balk at that. You know, I just made a silly mistake to not take myself seriously and to not plan for it. So that would be my biggest piece of advice, is like, you're here for a reason. You're doing this for a reason. It interests you. It grabs you for some reason deep in there. Listen to that. What is that reason? Investigate it, and investigate it seriously. This is pretty basic career services advice, is that you should take yourself and your passions and your talents and your skills, all of which you're building in this beautiful place, as seriously as possible. You know, that's one of the reasons that I ended up back in the place that I am. I'm back in my hometown of Philadelphia, and I'm at Penn because I realized 5 years after I graduated from Emory that I could not stop wanting to think and dream and speak in German every day. I missed it so much. And the more time I took away from it, the more I missed it, the more that lack grew. And that's when the turning point for me hit, was when I realized this could be my life. This could be actually something that I focus on, that takes over my world. If I let it do that, if I give myself the trust and the, you know, attentiveness to allow that to happen. So that would be my biggest advice, is to go to career services, get some help, talk to your mentors, your advisors, and the people who are around you, and invest in yourself, invest in your future. And that doesn't just mean, you know, plan out for this position and that position. It means taking stock of who you are, what motivates you, what makes you happy every day. You know, that simple kind of value inventory, so that you can land in a place that you enjoy, and in a life that you enjoy a lot, that makes you feel good and rich.
Great, thanks a lot, Mimi. Susannah?
I would also second the advice of going to career services, which I also didn't do, but that's what they're there for, and that might have helped me kind of sort out, you know, what I wanted to do for the short term and the long term. And Amanda was talking about coming out just after the economic crisis had hit, and I graduated just before that. And so it looked kind of bright and sunny when I graduated, and then a few months later, there was absolutely nothing out there. There was, that was a tough time to be coming back to the Midwest. And so I ended up going to California. There were lots of job opportunities out in the Bay Area. And so that's where I headed. During my senior year, I kind of, I wouldn't say I was floundering. I was just, I had a lot of different interests, and I wasn't really sure what direction that should take me. I was still interested in either doing public health or applying to med school. But I didn't feel sure enough to kind of jump on anything. And so I think that's where career services probably could have helped me sort of sort that out. But I knew that given, you know, some of the international experiences that I had through the German Studies department, I knew that I wanted to keep on exploring, and I didn't want to just settle in one place. And I wanted to try new things and meet lots of new people. And so that's really what drove me to go try a totally new place out in California, and just kind of dive into a new world there. And that's where I kind of landed in a lab at the University of California, San Francisco, which was amazing. So I can say with 110% certainty that if I had not had the experiences of studying abroad and having that whole my college experience that was, you know, at least half dedicated to experiencing another culture and learning about that I would never have had the bravery to just kind of decide to go to a completely, you know, new state across the country and and dive into whatever might be there. I didn't have a job there lined up when I moved out there. So it was, that was, I think, totally due to my experiences studying abroad.
Okay, thanks so much. Yeah, it's great to hear the plug for study abroad. And obviously, we in German Studies are deeply saddened that it's been now quite some time since we've been able to offer study abroad, with the past 2 summers been canceled. But we look very much this coming academic year to help those who want to study abroad for a semester. And then, of course, summer 2022, the Vienna program will be back up and stronger than ever, we hope. I had one more question. I could talk all night with these three, but I think I'll be quiet for now. But I do want to turn it back over to my colleague, Peter Hoeyng, who had a brief remark, and then we would like to open up the Q&A to all the participants tonight. But real quickly, thanks so much to the three of you for these initial thoughts. It's really great to hear your experiences, to see you, and to reconnect. And yeah, I look forward to the larger Q&A. So, but first, Peter.
Yes, thank you so much, Max, and thank you to all of you, Amanda, Mimi, and Susannah, for your wonderful contributions. I also want to give special credit to one of two wonderful staff, Dominique and Therese, but tonight particularly to Dominique, who reminded me after this panel turned to be out all women alumni, to tell you that there is an interesting connection. Because the former president, Jimmy Carter, an Emory professor, declared in 1980, March 8, as National Women's History. That extended then to whole months of celebrating women's history. So it's very appropriate to have three female alumni tonight with us. So thank you. So as my colleagues said, Professor Maxim, the floor is open now to the students that are here to ask questions to the alumni. And don't be shy.
Yeah, raise your hand or post in the chat, whatever, or just simply verbalize the question, whatever works. Yeah, Molina, hi, good to see you. Molina was in my 101 class last semester. So, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. I just have a quick question. I guess more directed to Amanda, since she did a grad program in Germany. So how, I guess, what's the application process looks like for like grad school in German or like Vienna in general?
Yeah, it's really dependent on what programs you're looking at. But I recommend, and this is kind of what I did when I came back from Vienna study abroad. I'm like, I got to get back there. Like, I got to figure out how to get back there and live there for longer than just a summer. And so I started scouring the internet for programs just to get me over there and living there, and then getting a network to get me into the work environment there. And sometimes a grad program is a great way to do that. And so the application process was much less stringent than a lot of American application, at least mine was. It was more about, writing an essay and explaining why you're interested, providing your credentials from Emory. Emory is a very well-known school. So when you send your Emory over there, they know of Emory, which is also great. The director of my program knew of Emory. And it could be very straightforward. Some maybe could be more in depth, but I didn't have to take an exam necessarily. Like, I didn't have to take like a certain kind of exam or entrance exam. It was more of, are you interested in this? What are your qualifications? Why do you want to do this? And I think that grad school is a little less, I don't want to say it's less common over there, but people could do undergrad for a lot longer in Europe. So if you want to go to grad school, it's definitely more of an out-of-pocket thing over there. And it's something that, you really want to specialize in something, so you do grad school. So the application process shouldn't deter you. I think if I were you and you wanted to try to do something over in Europe post-graduation with whatever you're studying, scour the internet, look for programs, reach out to Hiram Maxim and Hoeyng and see if they know of any kind of like programs that are offshoots of a university in Berlin or the University of Mannheim or the university, some of these universities have these offshoot programs. I discovered mine by literally just scouring the internet and being like, wow, this is exactly what I want. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Molina, I just put in the chat a link to our webpage that has some information, some search portals for finding more information about grad programs. We will be also hosting later in the semester an info session on a variety of kind of funding opportunities, both while you're a student, undergrad, but also post-graduation. So keep an eye out for that too. And of course, you're welcome to email us, and we're happy to walk you through the search process, because it's a little overwhelming. There's a lot of programs out there. Some are private, some are public, so that affects the tuition. And but I'll stop here. Carolina, my colleague Carolina Schaumann.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, I really just want to thank you so much for coming. It is so great to see you, to hear you, and also all your wonderful advice that you're giving our students. So a huge thanks. And as Hiram Maxim mentioned, the memory lane, I certainly have that as well, seeing you again. And it really goes both ways. Amanda, I still really remember the animated discussions we had in the film course, and Mimi, all your insightful contributions. And Susannah, I'm not sure we ever took a class, but I do remember your huge smile in the hallways always. So I have a question. My Hiram Maxim asked about the seniors. What advice would you give to seniors? And I'm wondering about the other, the very beginning students. What advice would you give to a student just starting with German in 101 or 102 this semester? And I'm asking that for the student's sake, but also for my own sake, because you may be aware that there are some discussions currently at Emory to reduce the foreign language requirement. So what advice would you give someone who is just starting out with German, struggling with the grammar, and seeing really a long, long road ahead?
I'm happy to talk about this one. So I've now taught 101, 102, and 103 German. So I know the struggles on both sides of the road, right? Of being that student in an early German class in college, and also being on the other side and trying to think, how can I make this connect and like meaningful for other people? A lot of this grammar has a really bad rap, or it has a reputation for being really difficult. There's this article by Claire Krumsch, who I think maybe Carolina, you might know. And she asks students what it feels like and what it, when they speak or when they read or when they write and when they interact with German. When you hear German, what does it feel like in your head? And a lot of times it can feel really funky to try to wrap your brain around a new grammar set, but really what you're doing is so much cooler than that. You're diving into this world where you can reframe how thought works. Like, what the heck? Are you kidding me? You can totally reimagine how things are connected to each other through foreign language and through learning another language. And I would say that anytime that you feel that sense of resistance between you and German, that's a good thing. You know, take a moment to think about that moment, or take a moment to think about that resistance and where it's coming from, what it might mean for you. Often it just means that you're identifying a place between what you know and what you want to know. And that's a place of learning. This is a good space to be in. That's what college is just inhabiting that space of, I don't know something yet, but I will at some point. And working in a foreign language or working in a second or target language, you end up being in that kind of place all the time. No matter how far you get, you're always in that mode of negotiation. So you have to learn to enjoy it. You have to learn to associate it with something good and with something that motivates you and makes you think of it as like a fun problem to solve. And that hopefully will take German from being that resistant grammar structure that we often think of and into something webby and strange and plastic that is yours to play with and make into something really fabulous. Herr Hoeyng, I always think about the grammar and the vocab journals that we had to do. And those are so much fun. You just get to net together all of these different words, and you start with like denken, and somehow you end up with the word Gedächtnis, and you realize, oh my gosh, those two are connected. So pulling those things apart and like sitting in that stickiness, sitting in that place of learning can just explode how you think, and in the best way.
Well, we need to hire you, Mimi. Get you
Yeah.
come down here and talk to the dean. It's great.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Mimi said about the way that your mind works when you're learning German. And I really don't say this lightly, like learning German makes you smarter. It's gonna exercise your brain and make you think about the meaning of words in a way that you've never thought about them before. And I ended up working in an area of kind of a mixture of law and economics and tax. And I swear I'm good at what I do because I learned German, because it had me focus on breaking sentences apart and thinking about things step by step, and the source behind a word and the meaning in a way that like no other class could have done for me at Emory. So it really is bending your mind and thinking in a way that is unique. And that experience alone as first year, second year students will definitely reap benefits for you and like those types of areas and complex thinking in general. So for sure.
Great. That's good.
The only thing I would add to that is that if I sort of wish I had more of an idea when I was just starting out and, you know, going through the grammar and the vocab and kind of the stuff that's a little bit more dry at the very beginning of learning a new language. I wish that I had known what all of those benefits would be that Amanda just mentioned, and just that at some point, you know, it's not going to be just like one morning you wake up and it's easier, but at some point, you know, like it definitely happened to me when I was studying abroad. It's probably easier there. I started dreaming in German, and that's when I was like, oh, it was more like a light bulb, and it felt like more of a part of me instead of just something that I was learning and struggling with. And I think that in itself is just kind of something to look forward to. And instead of, you know, staring down a long road of grammar and vocab that you're afraid you're never going to learn, it is going to happen, and it's so worth it when it does if you stick with it.
Great, thanks. This is really music to our ears. Yeah, any other questions from the audience? From a lot of, I see some names, students in 101, 102.
A lot of students who I just met for speaking tests.
Yeah, is Boki, is I got that right? Yeah. Please go ahead.
Oh,
Hi.
Peter, yes.
Yeah. I'm in Dr. Buko's class 102, and
Okay, good.
I'm a sophomore right now, and I'm planning to double major in biology and computer science. So I'm not exactly sure if I can fit in German studies in my academic. But I was wondering, like, what would I benefit from like studying abroad in German as a biology major? Is that kind of question?
Well, from my experience, that it helped in a lot of ways just while I was at school, just to kind of balance out all of those heavy science courses that I was doing, that because it's such a different experience being in a German class, whether it's a class about the history or the language, or for me, I did knock out a lot of the credits that I had to have a major while I was studying abroad. And so I was truly immersed in it, and I was, you know, taking art history classes, and it was a welcome reprieve from all of the biology and chemistry and everything else that goes along with a science major. It was, for me, that was maybe kind of what got me through a biology major, actually. And then in the long term, I mean, I just can't say enough about just all of the collaborative things that you learn from having that humanities major and all of those experiences under your belt. Especially in the sciences, probably no matter what you do in the sciences, you're going to be collaborating with people very closely, and to have that kind of well-rounded background is only beneficial. There's only amazing things that can come out of having that kind of background that maybe some other people don't. That's something really unique. I mean, a couple of the others were talking about, having something unique when you go to a job interview, and that German really is one of those. And especially if you're a science major, that's probably going to make you stand out, and it is a conversation piece. And then you will be able to explain, what unique experiences you had with that because of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Susannah. Stephen, hi. Yeah, Stephen was a student of mine in 101 last semester. Good to see you.
Hi, Dr. Maxim. Good to see you. Can you just talk a little bit more about the Kafka dissertation, Mimi? I'm an English major, so I think that just sounds cool.
Yeah, no problem. I feel very flattered, by the way, so this is like a good way to stroke my ego. Yeah, I am interested in that century turn from the 19th into the 20th a lot, and I knew that from my time at Emory. I read a lot of like Viennese works, a lot of weird, sexy, Schnitzler, in your face kind of stuff from that era, and I just couldn't really shake it as a curiosity, that time period. And then I got to school here and I tried out a bunch of other things, but anyway, I ended up with Kafka and I am working particularly on his racial imaginaries, so how he imagines race and how race happens in the works of Kafka, and how these are often drawn in gestural or ecological moments. So the connection between the wet landscapes of snow and the way that, if you know Abi Warburg or other gestural thinkers, Kafka is known for having these, what like Benjamin calls wolkige Stellen, right? These cloudy bits in his work where we can't really tell what's happening. And so I wonder if those cloudy bits can be connected to theories of race and theories of how watery or amphibious landscapes happen in his works.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay. Sophia, good to see you too. Sophia was a star student in 101, 102 last year. Okay.
She's a star student in 201, 202 this year too.
Great, great.
So I guess we have talked a lot about the Vienna program and also like general German like how German help you generally today. So I would like to ask, is there any specific things that German classes on Emory, so on campus, or activities about from German study department actually help you on your life or career?
I could kick it off a little bit on that one, Sophia. So the Emory German department, through of course, the Vienna program, but also, the classes, I think of the German film class with Frau Schaumann, and I took a Marx, Nietzsche, Freud class as well. You develop a bit of a community with your classmates through those classes. And then you end up going to the German studies events together, and that becomes a part of your college experience. And so, thinking of, what I did in my free time, my junior and senior year, it was going to some of these events that the German studies department put on with my friends that were in my class, because you get to know them. And You know, so not only are you at Emory in these classes with these brilliant classmates of yours, but you're also developing friendships because you're all having to sit next to each other and say, you know, I have 3 siblings. How many siblings do you have? And you realize that as you're doing these exercises, you're getting to know someone. That's how I ended up with my college roommate. She was sitting next to me in Maxim's class. And by the end of the class, we knew so much about each other. We're like, hey, we like each other now. Like she moved in, like we became roommates. So that's kind of the other element, I think, of being in these classes and doing these events with the German Studies program is it really builds out your college experience. And it's such a good group that you end up meeting people that are really, really bright and motivated. And you're in with kind of a good group, more or less, of your student body through the German Studies groups. That's my 2 cents on specifically the Emory German Studies department and how that influenced, kind of broader outside of Emory for me.
I don't know if it's the same kind of arrangement that it was when I was there, but the German Studies apartment at the Claremont campus was a huge draw for all kinds of events and cooking traditional German food and hanging out and watching the German movies. And so that really was a big part of the Emory campus. So I don't know if that's still set up or if that will resume when life kind of goes back to normal, or but yeah, I would second everything about, having that kind of group that attends all of the events that are put on or sponsored by the German Studies department is that's pretty unique and helps definitely build a network of friends and lifelong friends.
Yeah, we had to, it's not happening this year because of COVID, but the plan is to, as Professor Hoeyng said in the chat, to resume it in the fall with our Fulbright teaching system as well, living in the house.
And if I might add, we also have small stipends available this starting next year.
To offset the housing cost, yeah.
Yeah, I just would add one final thing, and that's remember that the folks that you're learning German with are your German language network, right? They're the people who you can practice this really fascinating skill and weird way of thinking with, and take that seriously. I don't know, that's my advice a lot tonight, is to take yourself seriously, but that network will stay with you, and the people that I met doing German are still my closest friends. My people that I met while studying abroad are still the people who I speak German with. And then I've gone back and I've studied abroad again, and those people you're on WhatsApp with. So it forms into a special kind of relationship that deserves its own kind of care and its own kind of love that is really, really wonderful.
Great, thanks. Any other questions from the audience?
I just want to add to what Mimi said about following your intuition into why you're studying German and why you find it interesting and what's coming up for you in that process. Because I was not a likely candidate to really dig into this as a part of my Emory experience and also my career path. I was very much I need to get a degree in an X technical skill so I can get a job out of college. And wow, did German really spin that in a different way and kind of change my thinking. And I think what was kind of coming up through me through that is I want more. I want to be a well-rounded person. I want to have, I want to be more than just someone that can, do debits and credits. I want to be interesting, and I want to have something interesting to say, and I want to have an experience that's interesting to talk about. And that's what was, I think, coming up for me when I came back from Vienna and learning about the art, the music, the food, the environment, that I'm this is now being a part of that has made me a more interesting human because I experienced that. And I was so craving that when I came back, that all I wanted to do was learn more and develop more as a human being. And that just led to the career. So you have to think about it in that way, kind of follow your heart and what Mimi's saying, and understand, like, why are you here? Like, why are you interested in German? Something's drawing you into this, and to really listen to that, because that leads you to doing something you love eventually. And that I think all of us on the panel here can say that is, there was something about German, and there's a lot of amazing things about German, but there's something about you being here and why you're interested in this that is going to reap benefits for you being the human being you want to be down the road, at least. So that's all I have to say.
Well said. Thanks, Amanda. Well, we're slowly winding down here. Maybe if I can jump on one little lingering question I've had, and Peter got one too. Peter, want to go first? Go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead. It's fine. It's fine. I can't wait.
Well, it was just both Mimi and Susannah mentioned kind of not a mini, I like to call it maybe a mini regret of not having gone to career services. But are there other things that when you look back, kind of things you wish you would have done? We just learned the subjunctive in 102, so kind of the subjunctive mood here of things you wish you would have done. There's kind of more friendly advice for your fellow Emory students out there.
I wish I got a minor in German. I deeply regret that. I took a lot of classes in German, and I think if I would have just put my mind to it my senior year, and taken a few extra, I could have done it. I didn't do that, but I started a little bit late. I didn't take German my freshman, sophomore year. So for those of you on here that are taking German your freshman, sophomore year, stick with it and get the minor or major. But if you're doing this and on top of another, major you're thinking about, please do that. That's one of my deepest regrets from undergrad is not taking it to the next level, because the German element of my undergrad ended up becoming literally the most important part of anything I learned in college, because of how much I needed it in my first, 5 years out of college. I wish so badly I'd started my freshman year and just built that foundation through 4 years. I would have been in a much better situation my first job when I was only being spoken to in German. So yeah, definitely get the minor or the major, but make sure you're looking at those credits and knocking that out.
And full disclosure, Amanda is not getting a commission for that statement at all. Okay, from us, this is completely voluntary on her part. Okay.
I wish I had allowed the connections that I was seeing between the things that I was thinking about to be realer to myself. Like all of the things, I was a scuba TA at Emory back when we had a scuba program. I don't know if that still exists, but I definitely was that person filling up the scuba tanks in the back of the pool. And an art minor, and also in German, and also in women's and gender and sexuality studies. So I had all of these different ways of thinking swirling around, and now I've smushed them all together into this one weird project about Franz Kafka, of all people. Which is just to say that, like, it's possible. It's possible that all of the ideas that you're having, that you're thinking, like, maybe this is just me and I'm being a little bit weird. That's not true. They're meaningful. They're going somewhere. They're coming from real places, and they can do really cool things, whatever those weird things that are swirling around, whether it's economics, whether it's pure mathematics, whatever it is, the connections that you're seeing, they're coming from you and your cognition, So that's what I wish I had done more.
Thanks.
I'm so glad I don't have really any regrets about the German major itself. I was so lucky to have that study abroad experience twice, and so lucky to have the faculty that were supportive and helping to make sure that the credits transferred and that I was able to do that and make time for everything. But probably the only thing I would do differently is just take advantage more of those events that are being offered. And I apologize for the background noise. There is a lot of really, really cool events. And so when things do resume in person, my advice would just be to say yes to everything, go to all the film nights, go to the whatever events the Fulbright TA is putting on, the dinners that are being cooked, because some of that will end up being the most memorable, entertaining, educational experiences that you'll have, even aside from the classes.
Thanks so much. Yeah, Peter, did you want to step in?
Yes, but just very minor thing to say to sum it up in a certain way is that I hear that talking early on with us faculty and all the other opportunities at Emory, not to be shy, as Mimi said, whatever it is that you are stimulated by, don't be shy to come to us. All my colleagues are here. We are all here to help you to find a pathway. And as you also heard from all the three wonderful speakers tonight, is that there's not a linear pathway. A lot of times students think, oh, I do check mark this, check mark that, and then because I have X, now comes Y. But it might be from X to T and then back to B and from B to Z. And we are all here to help you navigate that kind of curvy, tipsy, turvy road that might be ahead of you. And I should add that wonderful as our speakers are tonight, but we have many alumni like them who have similar or somewhat similar stories to tell. And so it is not atypical. And therefore, I think don't be shy to reach out to one of us, to your professor in the classroom. We are here to help you. We have wonderful testimonies heard tonight that they can attest to that we are here. And don't be shy to reach out to us, and we'll make it happen for you, whether it means study abroad, whether it means to go to graduate studies or to do graduate studies in a German-speaking culture. Any of these options are on the table for you. So that's all I have to say. I'm very, very grateful for having had such a wonderful panel, to have Amanda, Mimi, and Susannah share all the experiences with us. And if there's no other final word by someone, then I say good night to everyone, or good afternoon to some, I know, and or good morning. I'm not sure whether there's someone here where I have to say good morning, good morning. In any case, wonderful to have you all here meeting this way. That's one of the uplifting elements of Zoom time that we can get in a much easier fashion together like this. So thank you, my deep gratitude to all of you.